Okay, so the repo here is just a mono repo with three different applications within it. One is the backend API that handles all the database interactions. Then another is the admin UI that lets you do like analytics and reporting and doing all that. And then, some level of user control. And then we have the user application, which is a sort of like Twitter-like social media app. This uses PNPM. It's like a faster version, I suppose. I think it's run dev, and we'll do that. And then I will also. Oh, I am actually running stuff. Maybe I can just kill all my. I can start running. Okay, the app is set up, running. I seeded the database, which is a script that it came with. So we're just going to use one of the accounts from there. I believe that was what it was, right? Is test that. No, password 1 2 there. But yeah, so we're in the app, some basic pages, etc. We'll notice that there are comments, likes, and posts. You can post stuff, cool, and it all works. Yay! Now I can also edit this within 5 minutes. Apparently, how do I edit it though? Oh, looks like we might found something that's not. Huh. Okay, I don't know if they actually annotated that or if that's intentional. But we're going to leave that out of here for now and go back to the cool stuff. So if we look through the repo, we have API client admin client user. I'm going to skip explaining how this repo works and instead get into how I'm going to actually tackle these tasks. These are pretty hefty tasks. They're very real world application style. We've got some issues with credentials, logins, and vulnerabilities, which when I look through I look through the code base, they're pretty significant. We have some query performance issues. We can definitely take a look at those. Error handling, observability, and some test suite stuff, definitely. And there is no real CI, CD, no linting, no nothing like that before a push. And I think they prefer it to be in a pre-commit hook, which we might get to that at the end. But here's how I would actually tackle this. So number one, I have a um, workflow for what I do when I get into a new repo or if I write my own and then I just need some documentation for later. And so I'm going to do that. Run memory and also initialize and populate Serena MCP in this repo. So Serena is an MCP that will basically allow me to do like symbolic research or research search, not research, within this so that it doesn't have to constantly grep everything. You can just kind of like ask Serena, hey, where is this? How many instances of this? It helps with refactors a lot too, but I haven't really used it too much for those kind of things. It's just faster searches for me right now. And then a memory bank documenter is actually a custom thing that I built. I have a memory bank on my computer that basically stores the projects that I've worked on, technologies I've used, various reasons for development or decisions, etc. And I use this as a step in the pipeline that builds that memory bank where it will extract the relevant data from there, look for patterns, etc., etc. And we'll actually see the output once it's done. It writes it into a documenter output. This one already exists because I think I pulled it just from the old setup, but it is still running the Serena stuff, so we'll let it do its thing. Until then, let's tackle problem number one, the credentials issue. What does it say? The system stores user credentials, establishes trust between the client and the API. There are critical vulnerabilities with both, with millions of users, yada yada yada. So if we look at this, I'm gonna start up a new agent and I'm gonna ask it like that should be good. Let's see what it does. So that's off and running. This will give me a general analysis of what's actually going on. The documenter looks like we got this. Cool. It finished all of that. This will tell me various issues. So for example, patterns in here. What's going on? We have contract first API, which is nice. We have a data layer, a service layer, and each one has handlers. Don't really care about TANstack. That's the UI related stuff. We use JSON web tokens that are they're stored in cookies, components, task. Oh, that we don't really care. Error envelopes. Handlers catch errors and return success, false, and an error message. There's no machine readable code, which is kind of one thing I would definitely add in here. And then this payload is maybe inconsistent for certain things. I might expand upon that. But yeah, so let's go there. If we look through API, this is a monorepo, so it has all three of these at the same time. And I look at middleware and auth. This is probably the one. Okay, we notice right away there is a big issue right here. Why does this DMT secret have a default value? It should be required. It should not be in a publicly accessible environment. No, not an environment. What the AI can be so stupid. It should not be accessible. Be in the hard coded in a Git history. Yeah. So throw a startup error. So the dev knows that this is a required environment. Yeah, and then we also need to authenticate. So it's honestly, it's like these are basic stuff I would have in here for sure. They should never fire, technically, but yeah, anything that needs it, we should throw in the air. I'm gonna remove this, and we're actually going to add it in here. Now, I know this is going to cause a lot of tests to fail because I looked through the tests earlier and they don't even. So, yeah, we're gonna just if not set, please authenticate. Yeah, request. Actually, not even authenticate. Can't not sign. Empty request. Whatever. Please provide this. Whatever. Cool. And then let's put. Yeah, so as I mentioned, this is probably going to kill a bunch of. Yep, boom. Immediately, this is bad. If I look through here, I don't think there is an actual environment variable anywhere in here. Yeah. So, I don't know if these get passed down. That's the interesting thing. What was the name of this? Yeah, for now, why not? If we load this and then out of that, I would hope it picks it up. If it doesn't, we'll fix that later. This as that. Okay, so our analysis finished. First of all, and it looks like it found another one. First, it did find the JWT secret fallback. Apparently, we're using a static salt value, which is fun. Let's look through there. And this has this issue. I will take a look. Now that I have this analysis, I'm going to add another. I'm going to add a new work tree. And then I'm going to have this one run on the second task. Great, let it do its thing. And then actually, while we're at this, because I know some of the tasks on the others are actually similar to this, we might just run them too. So I'm going to add another work tree. Each of these should ideally be in a separate work tree so that changes from each are isolated. We can merge them back afterward, but the issues, they might touch similar files, but they don't seem like they have overlap. We have a credential problem, we have a query performance problem, we have error handling might actually be touching a lot of files that, so we might leave that out. But test suite problem is an easy one, I feel like, to attack. So example, input sanitization. Just in case, because with the way this is working, I'm pretty sure the analysis has something along those lines, so I want to find that. Do not modify existing files. Do each sub. Yeah, that should be fine. Cool. So that's off and running in its own thing. And then this one's off and running. Key points on the document. Security analysis. Let's go back to the security analysis. We got 3 tasks already done. It's only been 20 minutes. Actually, pretty good timing. Okay, refactor. We don't want to rewrite a bunch of stuff unless we have to, and I don't want it to assume certain design decisions that just should be touched without me putting in input. This issues we'd like to make sure this covers all. Make sure. Okay. We're in plan mode, so I don't have to worry about it messing with any of this stuff. These are ridiculous. Like, if we look at this, like, basics, I would probably move this out to, like, a enumeration or at least a constant or something. The enumerations get written down as static files when it gets built. But aside from that, like, apparently we're not salting properly. Where is the user? Oh my. Oh, okay. So, yeah, this is bad. Add a proper salt, not a statically typed salt string. Oh, and looks like we're only running one. We should iterate. No, what? No. Um, Which password hashing approach should replace SHA-256? Migration will be incremental rehash on login. So let's see, did users keep working? I like bcrypt. Bcrypt is nice. I've used it before. How should we fix stale JWT authorization and non-revocable sessions to BFF clients? Already meant short-lived 5 minutes. Honestly, with this one, I feel like those tokens. Yeah, this one requires some serious ones. Okay, so just to explain my thought process behind this. Option A, rechecking and making sure that there's a ban status from the DB for each request. That's simple, but it doesn't cover everything. And then, I want a server-side session table regardless anyway. JWT has a benefit that we don't need one, kind of like, like a session store like Redis or something like that. But it's still useful as a testing mechanism in the midterm. And it would guarantee that these are outright removed because we don't want, even if they're only like short-lived 5-minute tokens, we don't want anybody within those 5 minutes to be able to act maliciously, steal data. That's like, in a machine sense, that's a lot of time. Wouldn't be the worst thing. However, this looks like it's a scalable social media application, so we're dealing with potentially a lot of people and a lot of PII. So I would take the safe route with this. The deny list table is just going to slow everybody down. And assuming that this is 5-minute tokens, hopefully, like, a lot of these are just not really necessary. So we might be able to kind of avoid making 80% of new users or new requests have to deal with logic that relates to the 5-minute people. And so I want a secure solution. The first one's not bad, but this one would just add a hindrance. So I kind of like the, I don't like think about it. Just recheck role band status. I don't want to make a DB request each time, and I don't want to keep short-lived JWTs active. I want to just remove them entirely and invalidate them so that we can remove that code later. Okay, cool. I'm gonna stick with it. Should we fix the hard-coded JWT secret in plain text? Yes. At startup, yep. Enable optional TLS, secure only for the local development. So I like if we're running behind a reverse proxy, which might not be a bad idea for a Node.js server, like, I don't know, throw Nginx in here or something, then we probably don't need TLS. Now, it is saying make it optional, which I like. I wanted to do the whole GWT secret stuff at startup anyway. There should be no fallback for that. Insecure is fine on local, but I would also ideally not want to do that just so that we can mimic production a little bit better. So we're going to stick with this. Two items in the analysis are absent rather than active flaws. Should the plan include building them? MFA, no, we don't need MFA. And password reset, that's a future thing. Let's fix this first. Yeah, let's fix what we have already. And then let's check out query performance now that the security analysis stuff is updating its plan for how to fix it. If we look at this, home feed 10 posts, what we got? Every list endpoint fetches a page of rows, then fires additional per row queries to hydrate comment counts. So it's making a query for every result of a list to get a count. Okay, yeah, that's nasty. Let's fix that. Yeah, don't do that. Oh, and there's no limit. So do we have pagination? The heck? Bookmarks is worse per row because it requeries post left join users. Okay. One grouped in. So we provide the post IDs, group by the post ID, then you just count them. I like that. Behind a single hydrate post helper. Yep, cool. So that we can reuse it. Target counts 3 to 4 queries per list endpoint. Note that indexing is explicitly out of scope. Yeah, I don't want to do this, but we definitely should add indexes in the long term. Let's just make it so it annotates it. Pangent would change its response contract. It currently returns all posts, so that one needs client to end-to-end coordination rather than a silent change. I'll call that explicitly in the doc. Let's bam. Okay. So what I'm trying to get it to do is you've analyzed everything, you've done all that stuff. Now I want you to create a plan for how to actually fix them. I'm gonna ask it. Usually I put it in there, but I think I just forgot how to actually add tests for each of these. And then I split out the ones that might be breaking changes. Let's just do the easy stuff first. I want atomic commits so that I can look through Git history really easily, be like, hey, this works, this works, this works. What did we do to fix each individual issue? If we ever need to pull out just like one fix, we can. So that's really cool. And yeah, if we do it that way, then we should have a very easy step-by-step fixable thing. And the way it organizes these plans, I can run it at all of these in subagents in parallel if I really wanted to. I'm not going to, but we could. Looks like our security analysis is finished, so check out what the plan says. New token session flow, login, pass credentials to the auth service, it logs in, decrypt does its thing, salts and hashes, creates the session row, and then over here, we can, once we log in, the cookie session setup, you create a 5-minute JWT token, JWT, make the actual call with the token, authenticate the token, everything's good, session's active, they're allowed in, and we finally pass it through. So we got a bit of new middleware, better passing, and we actually have bcrypt in here to handle the authentication and salting and hashing. Do first attack affects many phases. Validate session token becomes 40 call sites to wait. Yep, definitely want to do that. It might add a little overhead because we're adding so much middleware, but it is worth the security because we're dealing with such important information, and this is such a heavy vulnerability that this should have been done in the first place. Hand rolled, any schema changes to the sessions table must be mirrored in Drizzle. Are we making? Oh yeah, because we're adding salt to that, right? I hope. If we're not adding a salting, this is easier. Secrets and ID fast. Remove the fallback, remove that, switch generated to random for missing secret, credential storage, bcrypt with legacy detection, rehash, and login migration. So when the user tries to log in, we should migrate them to the new setup. This doesn't mention salts, which I definitely want to store. Now upgrades to 2-hash, new user stored as bcrypt, wrong password rejected, weak password rejected. Ban, login, yep, okay. Add. This looks awesome. Let's add. Oh, actually, I wanted to. Let's add. tests each update so we know that the changes are valid and working. Let's break this up step by step so that I can have a atomic get history. Cool. Is the test coverage stuff done? Oh no, it's still doing its thing. Cool. How broad should this batch of commits be? The analysis found 3 named worst offender flows, plus a wider systemic set with the n plus just the 3 worst offenders. No, we need to fix this on a lot of things. If this is a consistent pattern, there's no point in just fixing it one time. Batch of commits be found 3 named. Yep. Several affected services have no unit tests today. I test fit into the atomic, add a new test, only rely on, no, don't add any new tests. I will do that after. Or I have another suite that's running on this, so I can't have it doing that. That's a limitation there. Cool. All right, now that they are running, this is updating my flow. I'm going to wait till they're all done. Be right back. Okay, so the agents are completely done with their plan. Test coverage one is still doing its thing. I haven't had a chance to take a look at that. But for the security one, I had it basically break up the existing plan, which I liked, into individual atomic commits, which is really cool because now we can see exactly what it wants to do. It adds tests for each one so that we can make sure that each of the changes that it's making work. There's some like assumed format to this, so it's pretty common for AIs I've seen to format it like that. I'm gonna have it actually start on this. I have a thing called Caveman on here. Oh, stop. Don't run that. I have a thing called Caveman on here. It's a skill that's that I've been using to decrease my token usage. Basically just removes a lot of the fluff in here and just keeps like the hardcore machine knowledge that I need. So since we already have all the plan laid out, we're not going to, lose information much. So I'm just going to have it caveman and then start implementing this plan 1. Let's do / caveman and then just activate caveman mode. Okay, awesome. And then I'm going to have you build this plan. It has 29 to-dos with caveman mode on. As you notice, like caveman on, full level plan ready, 29 versus I've restructured the plan. I did a little bit. Saves a lot of time. Query performance thing. So now that we look at this, what's it got? Replace the get posted with batch queries on group by. Arrays, queries. Commit 1 is add batch hydration utilities, foundation and wiring. What was the thing they used within the fix component? I guess is what we're gonna call, like, for example. And that's easily. I would usually add this as a rule or a convention in a README that the AI is consistent with this, but that's just easily legible and consistent across my Git history. Yep, cool. So, oh, this actually got pretty granular. It says delete the exact amount, put this line. I don't think I needed to do all that, but yeah, whatever. Search service commit server. It does that. I'm going to do the same thing and do search is cool because I can kind of assume that it's going to do this properly. And I can activate this, queue that up, and then once that's complete, I can basically say build after it's done. All right, now that we have the tests, common theme, security gaps, APIs, untested surface area, isolation, UI completeness, structure role, both React apps, place general, tests under test unit. Started at 2:40, so this is 40 minutes now. I want to still complete this in 90 minutes just to see what I can get done within that period of time with minimal context of the actual application at the beginning instead of just zero, and highlight how I actually do my workflow rather than being bogged down by a few restrictions that were in the technical assessment. This is how it would work if I was in a production environment as an employee. Okay, cool. That's done. Let's build it. Security gaps, common themes. Yeah, of course, usual thing. Both React apps are generating a test. You do that and you're useless. Your work is finished. Pass, pass, pass. Okay, it tells me that they're passed. Now we're going to actually check that they're passed. Also, yes, I did check the work tree. It's over here. That's what I was doing earlier. So, what did it do? Okay, some linting issues we should probably fix. Like some of the UI components have tests on them. The admin starting. The UI test passed. I don't know if they're exactly like very verbose. We might want to update those, but the UI changes so often that's kind of difficult to do. AWT is not set. I'm glad that it recognized this. And an update to the header inside was not wrapped in act. When testing the code that causes React state change should be wrapped into act. Testing behavior that user would see in the browser. Okay, cool. Looks like it has some issues with the best practices for that. Links to each post. Not particularly big on UI tests. Like I said, it changes very often. So unless these are consistent issues or components, then cool. But like API routes, for example, here, this is the stuff I would actually want to test. I don't really care too much about the components themselves unless there's just like a this is going to live forever type of idea, which is pretty rare in my experience. Renders the header backlink, delete action, renders that, currently ignores route param. Okay, so again, these are like the individual component tests that don't particularly care, especially in admin. It's like, who cares? Unless we have a big team. Authenticated user loads and displays the current user logs out, redirects to the login page. Cool. Which one failed? Two tests failed on API test, you liar. And that is registers a new user and logs in with valid credentials. We do not have a JWT session token set, so we can't be doing that. And then client user had an issue. About some kind of DOM manipulation. And then card renders test timed out. That's kind of interesting. Might just be that it has such an inefficient query that we're fixing right now, or the query is being modified. Actually, this isn't a work tree, so yeah, it's just a really inefficient query, which we are fixing. We'll run this afterward. I'm also going to fix my environment setup. Probably add like which does this setup have that environment token that I added? I don't even know. I don't know. I'm gonna close this because I don't know what I was writing. I think it was the commit hash stuff. Security analysis, caveman on Tego. Isn't this supposed to be running right now? Oh, I never even. Oops. Is it crashing? What's going on? Yeah. Go start implementing. Why are you on Composer 2.5 fast? I want you on auto. Same thing here. Oh, that's why. Yeah, I ran out of tokens with Sonnet. That probably means this one stopped too, didn't it? Yep. Let's see. Okay, that's actually a cursor thing. That why didn't they warn me that that's what's going on? Kind of interesting. But yeah, what we were gonna do is fix the environment issue. So if I look at apps API, I don't have one in here. Add a cool. And then I was just going to create a separate env file and just like pass it in. You could also symlink the env files to each other and it's just repeating it, but it's fine. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now it's actually running. Cool. I will be back when this finishes. Looks like the performance query will finish. And it decided to do a bunch of refactors. Each one is in its separate Git history, which let's validate that real quick. It is? Okay, awesome. And that would allow me to check each one individually, which is cool. I want to, it says there are 2 existing failures, so because of the JWT stuff that I'm already fixing in a different agent. I'm not going to fix it here so that we don't have to double our work and then fix merge issues later. Instead, let me just do a pnpm test. Let's find out what's actually. We didn't get past the test that we need because of this JWT stuff. It's kind of annoying. I need it to essentially test that timeout issues that we were having earlier. Change, yeah. But cards uneven cross that I touched. Feed, search, bookmarks, notifications, all those do not have test handlers. So feed. Oh, okay. Cool. Let it do its thing. Let's get back here. So this is the one that was doing tests. Rather than 3 handcuff secrets. Oh yeah, I had it basically add a environment setup so that I can pass the JSON web token secret around. And looks like it is finished with it. It added an example file for us, so we know exactly what needs to be passed. This is across a bunch of them. The environment file looks like it's passed through the CLI, right? And for the API anyway. And then for the admin, again CLI. For the user, again CLI. It's like the Vite config for the user and the admin, because of React, does read the environment directly through Vite, which it says in here somewhere. Ah, yeah, I'm blind. Load the monorepo into server only has these, read the docs. Yeah, okay, yeah. So it just basically creates a process.environment object that everybody can access, and then it calls a helper function, invite, that will load it from whatever environment's necessary. So it's like .env. It probably can handle it, I would assume. I don't know what it's specifically using, but it should work. We'll test that out with running the tests while I read this code. So we're gonna clear this out, npm run test, and that should start its whole thing. Make sure that these web secret ones that we had don't happen anymore. Is the value that must match, now guaranteed identical. Session secrets also from root, shared across things you prefer defense and get them separate keys. This is probably a good idea, so I will want to split it out. Looks like I still had a test that failed with JSON web tokens, and then another one that failed. RN BNPM. Cool. This one might need more time, but yeah. So what exactly did it do that made it so it's not passing in? I want to know. Um, so it's passed in .in, and then wiring per runtime, they differ, so each needed the right mechanism. API dev start. So this one's on API. The other JSON web token one, this one's also an API. Looks like the front end ones worked just fine. All of the tests have failed our own API. Client. Yeah, okay. And then for that one, it says dev start now pass --n file if it exists. Let's make sure that the path that it passed in to it is correct. So this one goes 2 steps up and then finds the dev. That's 1, 2, and then .env. And if we look at API, this one does 2 steps up, .env. Yeah. Why isn't it working though? Does the test environment also need it? Why? What's failing with this? I'm not quite sure myself, to be honest. But let's find out. I'm not too familiar with how this is passing. I might need to do some research after that completes if it still can't figure it out. And also just like check its solution. Cool. Good job. It's figuring out its own issues. And then this one is running through the updates. So I will be right back. Okay, so at least one of the agents is back. This is the query performance one. We had a few issues with this where the JSON web tokens were still failing, but basically I wanted it to check, now that it's made all of its updates, do they have some tangible proof that those actually helped? So I wrote a few tests, and it's claiming that it's caught an issue with a subquery, which is hard to find. Now we're going to test it. This is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to run the test. Most likely, they're still going to have the JSON web token issues, but hopefully we can find the issues that it improved upon, which are test, the auth, like, comments, admin, post. Creates a post with a valid session token. Can't do that one. Rejects duplicate email. Rejects returns valid. Create follows, likes, posts, service test. Okay. If we look at the tests in the posts and look at get posts, if so, one of the updates that it made was get posts, and in here, now we use a helper function called hydrate post counts instead of this like mapping to individual queries per row returned by get post. This will basically just find out how many comments and likes I have by doing a few groups and so on there. So we looks like we have separate queries. You know how many there are, and then you just run a count on them. You know how many counts there are because you can just map by post ID. Since we're grouping, we know that there's exactly one post ID, one row per post ID, and then we know that the second value is the count here. Then we map that instead of doing another query back in. So instead of like potentially let's say we had pagination. We don't even support pagination, so this could be trying to do it for 15,000 rows, and we wouldn't even know. But instead of having 15,000 queries trying to run at the same time, we have just guaranteed that it cuts it down to like two. It's pretty awesome. Once we have paginations, it's going to be even easier. But yeah, let's look at what's actually going on. So to test this, what did it do? Post iterations in here, post service test, and then I want to see get posts, create test post, post 1, 2, 3, limit 2 to have length 2, post to be defined, returns paginated post with correct structure. I don't even think it got this far. When we look at this, yeah, posts, the handlers got tested, but the services, it just said, yay, all the services passed. Oh, it looks like there is a query efficiency one that they added in here, which is not something I saw earlier. Where is that though? Query tests. Oh, we added it in the test folder. This is another sort of anti-pattern that I actually want to fix. When I was looking through the directory, it looks like the other applications, client admin and client user, have their tests in a separate like directory instead of source. As you know, it's like, none of these have tests with them, but if we look within tests, we know that they're there. This one has a test directory and set up the same way. However, here has a test directory. Is it? None of these are actual test files. We just created this test one. The rest are just next to their services. Now, that's fine, except it's just inconsistent. So I don't really care if we do one way or another, but whatever it is, we need to be consistent. And since there's already two applications using the other directory, we should probably refactor these to move the tests out of there into the test directory for consistency's sake and maintainability. So we're not just looking and being like, where are all of our tests? Instead, we know where to look for them every time. Issue with this is, and the reason I'm not going to do it right now is because we're going to run out of time with the relative paths. There's a lot of them. Basically, every path in here is relative, and they're going to require pretty significant refactor. I don't want to do that right now. It's going to be a headache. I could do that. Like I said, Serena is very good for this, but considering there's so many tokens being used already and my agents are taking a long time to respond to some of these larger requests, I think we can just focus. Now, there are other tasks in this task.md file. I don't think I'm going to get to them, but these three are very crucial. The two that I'm missing are nice to haves, like the build pipeline. I mean, CI/CD is more than a nice to have, but it's also not critical when you were just starting out. So we can technically push this to the next update. Error handling and observability. Personally, I would have implemented this right away. However, now that we have some of these other issues in here, they kind of start creeping in, like the fixes to them start creeping into the error handling observability as we like add tests and logging and all this. So this is something that would have to be like kind of like done looking back at all the other stuff after I implement some of the larger updates. So let's take a look for after yada yada yada. This is the test coverage one. You caught it, however, I don't see that one running with that. Well, it has JWT issues, so I guess the security analysis one needs to finish already. This one caught it. No, I don't want to find any existing test files. What did we get for this bash? Cool. Did I have anything wrong? There changes and merge this into and wait, actually I think my security analysis is running on temp-2. So we're not going to do that unless this one finishes, and right now it's on C15 through C28, which is the final set. I think there's only C29 at the end. But it just got started, so this might take a bit. For the 70, 80 minutes in, so I have about 10 minutes to fix this.